Water is incredibly powerful, and people only tend to realise this when they are overpowered by the massive waves of raging rivers or stormy oceans. A lot of people end up in trouble when they're in water, especially if they're not trained experts. Some water bodies are so strong they can displace colossal structures and wash away entire cities. In today's video, we'll show you 20 monstrous waves caught on camera, so make sure you watch till the end and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Cruise ship battered by waves. It's quite puzzling to see people happily planning cruise trips, especially after seeing such frightening footage of cruise ships being tossed around by the ocean like a children's toy. The ship in the footage, which is clearly being bashed around by the 30-foot waves, got stuck in this nightmarish situation in the Antarctic. There were 160 people aboard this US-operated 290-foot-long cruise ship called Clelia 2. The poor vacationers had to wait patiently while they were scared out of their wits for the water to calm down. The cruise ship lost an engine due to an electrical failure while being tossed around by the waves and 55-mile-an-hour winds. The crew declared emergency and radioed for help. A huge wave broke the starboard bridge window and the electronic equipment was compromised. This caused a loss of communication, but thankfully a ship was sent to help after hearing the distress call on the radio. The cruise ship was repaired and afterwards made the 500-mile journey back to the port. The Teapu Break. Surfers in Tahiti often have to navigate Teapu, which is famous as the most dangerous wave in the world. It's also one of the deadliest breaks, and only people with a death wish would dare to navigate this incredibly large wave. This wave is a perfect combination of power, speed and size. It also breaks over a deadly and sharp coral reef just a few feet below the surface. The sharks and boats that capsized in the region only make the sport more difficult for surfers. This wave can actually tear your skin off, but despite the dangers, people travel from around the globe to try their luck in Teapu. Kiala Kennelly is just one such surfer who has mastered the wave, but even she almost died in 2011 after colliding with the coral reef below. Waves crash against oil rig. Drilling consultants are some of the highest paid professionals in the world, and that's because they work at oil rigs installed in absolutely nightmarish locations like this offshore drilling rig. An offshore worker who was on a platform located 145 miles from Aberdeen, Scotland, filmed this footage of incredibly powerful waves crashing against the rig owned by a company named Dolphin Drilling. The drill is situated in the North Sea. People were actually on that rig. It had enough cabins to house 274 workers. The people on the rig must have felt like it was their last day alive. It's actually very dangerous and life-threatening. A man performing maintenance on ABP Unity rig back in 2014 fell into the sea and never made it out. So it seems like earning less money on land is a better choice than making millions on an oil rig. Big waves in Mexico. Puerto Escondido, Oaxaca is a popular surfing site and port town in Mexico. It's known for its numerous beaches and the Mexican pipeline surf break. Smaller waves at La Punta Beach also attract many surfers, but Puerto Escondido hosts the best surfers in the area between April and October every year. The swells come from two zones, the South Pacific and the East Pacific tropics during these months. Intense winter storms and the increased pressure can cause massive southerly swells that can be as high as 20 feet. With the storms moving towards South America, the swells shift and move further towards Puerto Escondido. For surfers, the first half of the season is relatively more consistent, but if you're looking to ride the biggest wave ever, the middle and end of season is the most appropriate time to get in the water. Waves hit French Lighthouse. Modern-day lighthouses are automated, but this wasn't always the case. Back in the day, people had to work on these lighthouses no matter how aggressive the waves in the area were. A stretch of water in France's Brittany region is an essential passage if you want to pass between the Atlantic and the English Channel. It's also an extremely dangerous territory, with tides of up to 6 knots and incredibly hostile sea currents, especially during spring. Amongst the violent waves of this area stand lighthouses where actual people used to live. Armon is one of the renowned lighthouses and was built in 14 long years as the rough conditions made construction almost impossible. It is undoubtedly the most challenged workplace, and the lighthouse keepers rightfully termed it the Hell of Hells. Thankfully, it was automated in 1990. Huge wave hits Queensland, Australia. Locals of Queensland were left reconsidering their decision to build homes and businesses along the shore when a colossal 16-foot tall wave crashed on the coast. Many called it a mini tsunami that caught them by surprise. In video footage, people can be seen casually walking on the beach before the wave crashed. It's quite clear they were not expecting it. The wave engulfed the entire Bondi Beach of Sydney. Danger warnings were issued for all of the New South Wales coast because of the strong winds that caused this destructive wave. Big waves at Dungeons, South Africa. Experienced surfers like surf in challenging waves, so the ones in South Africa just travel to the most extreme surfing location in the country to have some fun. This place is called Dungeons Beach, and it's a world-famous surfing spot located off the coast of Hout Bay, just at the foot of Sentinel Mountain. The beach is only accessible by a boat ride, but surfers don't mind the long commute as it boasts some of the most magnificent and advanced waves in the world that can be as high as 60 feet. The first ever surfers to ride the waves of this area were Pierre de Voulier and Peter Button from Cape Town. They surfed here in 1984. Since then, an annual contest is held during winter. It's called the Red Bull Big Wave Africa, and it's an invite-only event, so the most skilled and famous national and international surfers make it to the contest. Rough Cook Strait Ferry crossing. Every New Zealander has encountered a rough crossing on the Cook Strait Ferry between Wellington and Picton, but people on the ferry in this footage got caught in the worst waves back in 2004. The waves were so big the passengers thought they'd die at sea. The video footage is from the DEV Erahura, a roll-on roll-off train ferry that was operated by Inter Islander between 1983 and 2015. This was a comparatively faster ferry and reduced the crossing time by 20 minutes. It was also made in a way to reduce the waves affecting nearby beaches, but the waves haven't been very nice to the ferry. In 1989, the ferry rolled to a 40-degree angle during a routine trip because of storm conditions. The ferry made its final journey in 2014 and departed Wellington for India, where it was dismantled and scrapped. Freak wave hits ship. Ships are bound to get tossed around during storms, but the MV Metzeborg, owned by Wagenborg, got itself in an incredibly challenging situation. In the video, it can be seen navigating the North Atlantic in 2008. The waves seem like they're not going to stop until they swallow the ship. The huge 98-foot waves can be seen tossing the ship, hell-bent on killing the crew. The Atlantic is notorious for being the second most dangerous ocean in the world, not just because of the coastal winds that affect the water, but also because of the cold temperatures. The MV Metzeborg has also been stuck in ice in the Atlantic. Waves make car collide on ferry. People travelling on the Washington State Ferry from Friday Harbour to Anacortes are often met with unfavourable conditions. The waters can get so violent that cars can cause accidents despite not being on the roads. This happened to Jeremy Ridgway, who was travelling on the 1105 ferry back in 2017. He realised that the waves were getting larger. He and his passenger were sitting inside the vehicle. Jeremy decided to film the waves as they grew, but suddenly a huge spray of water came over the top of the boat. It was followed by a large wave that crashed into the ferry. The car in front of them pushed into the car next to theirs, which moved back almost 3 feet. Luckily, it was just one wave, and the rest of the journey was uneventful. Extreme weather on the Norwegian coast. Catching fish is no easy job. Fishing boats often encounter some pretty harsh conditions at sea. On the Norwegian coast, rescue cruiser Peter Henry von Koss had to escort a fishing boat facing engine troubles and broken windows back in 1997. Bringing the boat home wasn't an easy task as the weather was exceptionally bad with stormy conditions and high waves, but thankfully they made it back safely. We can't say the same for everyone, as Norway's coastline is considered among some of the most dangerous ones in the world. Almost 46 accidents and near accidents and 33 deaths have occurred in Norwegian waters in the last 3 decades. Even in the days where there's no wind, the waves rarely calm down, and ships sometimes have to wait for days before they can continue their journeys. Waves capsize boat at Jaws surf break. Jaws is the largest, fastest and heaviest wave in the Pacific Ocean and is a popular surfing site. It's also known as Payahi and is famous for its surfing spot off the north shore of Maui in Hawaii. It produces waves that can be 30 to 80 feet tall. 8 people aboard a 22-foot boat had no idea how powerful the water here can be when their boat capsized in 2014. Paul Cleveland, a ballistic TV producer, dove down to the floor and locked his arms underneath the rail by the motor. He held on until the boat turned upside down. According to him, the foam surge from the wave broke into the boat and pushed in sideways, due to which it rolled over. Fortunately, many onlookers saw and came to their rescue. All 8 people got out safely, but Paul lost expensive camera equipment. Huge Nazareth swell. The seaside town located in West Portugal called Nazareth boasts some of the most magnificent waves. The town is about 60 miles from Lisbon and faces the Atlantic Ocean. The huge and high-breaking waves of the region are pretty famous and can reach heights between 65 and 100 feet. Nazareth is therefore a thriving beach town, resort and surfers' haven. The waves are caused by a huge undersea canyon, and the best time to visit the town to ride or witness these mesmerizing waves is between October and March. Even the most experienced surfers avoid riding the biggest waves at Nazareth, well, except for Rodrigo Cossa, who bravely rode an 80-foot wave in 2017 and made a world record. High waves at Durban Beach. The North Beach of Durban had to be temporarily shut down back in 2017 when insanely high swells breached the promenade. This happened when Cyclone Inawa was off the coast and the storm system was blamed for the violent waves that flooded the beach. The same area was also destroyed around 10 years prior to this by high waves. But despite the dangerous waves, people actually decided to go to the beach and watch instead of rushing to safety. Cargo ship in storm. A lot of effort goes into securing the material required for wooden furniture. Just look at this boat trying to escape a storm near the Kiril Island while carrying more than 30,000 logs. The cargo ship crew had to face 80-knot winds and 32-foot-tall waves. And that's not all, because water also leaked into the engine room and the crew had to spend a lot of time getting it all out. Not to mention it was incredibly cold, with temperatures dropping as low as 24 degrees Fahrenheit. Massive waves crashing into the ship at the starboard side can be seen in the footage, and just by looking at them, we know that these crew members need to be paid 10 times more than what they're currently paid. Crazy shore breaks. Shore break is an incredibly dangerous and unpredictable water phenomenon. The waves break on shore in this phenomenon, and it happens when there's a fast transition from deep to shallow water. The energy from such a transition can knock people off their feet and throw them against the sharp rocks, coral and sand. This can lead to severe head, neck and spinal cord injuries. Hawaii is home to some of the most dangerous shore break events, even during small surfs. A 3-foot-tall wave can easily cause a spinal cord injury, as the waves in Hawaii make shore breaks with an immense force. Tsunami-like waves in Italy. If the pandemic hadn't done enough damage to Italy, the colossal tsunami-like waves only added to the country's misery. These waves were caused by huge storms in the Tyrrhenian Sea, and they overran the Maratea village. The water went over its safety walls and destroyed many parts of the harbour. The extraordinarily strong waves damaged several buildings, flooded the streets and swept away containers. Luckily, the waves weren't able to demolish the entire harbour, and several cars, homes and ships remained safe because of the wall. The residents couldn't do anything but watch helplessly as their little town got flooded. Stormy weather and a sailboat. Even the most sophisticated navigation technology made by humans is no match for the ocean's wrath. Just look at this unfortunate sailboat being thrashed around by the waves like it's a plastic toy that weighs nothing. The video was filmed by a German marine rescue boat named Wilhelm Kaisen back in 1997. The sailboat in trouble is called the Anita, and it had called the rescue boat to help it escape the torturous waves of the North Sea. With help from the rescue boat, Anita safely made it to a harbour in Holigo Island, a tiny German archipelago in the North Sea. According to sources, the sailboat crew wasn't worried as they were experienced and knew how to save themselves and the boat. Lady almost washed away. This tour group you see was on the coast somewhere. Everyone was busy taking photos of the hostile waves when a foolish woman in a pink dress decided to pose in front of the waves. As the person with the camera snapped more and more pictures, the waves grew closer and eventually wiped her out. She didn't even get a moment to try and save herself. It's also quite concerning that the person taking the photos didn't warn her. People really do ignore all warnings and danger signs until something bad actually happens. Luckily, the woman didn't get washed away into the sea. She survived, but got some pretty bad injuries. Big waves on Oahu's North Shore. All professional surfers are aware of the North Shore of Oahu. This is where you get to witness some of the most mesmerizing winter waves. In most parts of the world, people avoid going into the freezing cold water, but here people flock to the beaches to witness breaching whales and huge surfs. The water is definitely colder, but that doesn't deter the excited surfers from venturing into the colossal waves between November and February. The waves can reach heights of 50 feet during the peak of the season, and some winter waves can be even 100 feet tall. But these powerful waves are not for amateurs, so only experienced professionals should go surfing here. These were some life-threatening waves from around the world. Tell us in the comments which one you found the most frightening. We'll be back soon with another video. Until then, have a great time.